Welcome and thank you for joining us for the National Family Support Network's Webinar Wednesday, Family Resource Centers Working with Families in Rural Communities. Today, we will explore in what ways are Family Resource Centers effectively supporting families in rural communities. How do Family Resource Centers cover great distances in rural service areas? And what have been the challenges, successes, and lessons learned from working in rural settings? I'm Brenda McChesney, the co-founder and associate director of the National Family Support Network, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. If you're joining us online, you may listen directly through your computer speakers. And if you joined us via phone number that Zoom provided, your line has been muted to minimize the background noise. For those of you online, please note the link to the Dropbox folder in the chat. Here you'll see that there are some handouts available for you to download. In addition, you may put questions in the question section at any time. The chat section is open for you to include any comments during the webinar, but we ask that you direct all of your questions to the Q&A section of Zoom. We do have live tech support available in the room if you have any technical issues, and please feel free to reach out to them in the chat. And just a note, at the very end, we'll be doing an open panel discussion followed by answering the questions that are in the Q&A section that you put throughout the webinar. Today's PowerPoint, handouts, and a recording of this webinar will be made available on the NFSN website on the Webinar Wednesday page at this time within the next week. When you exit the webinar, please know that you will have an automatic evaluation appear. We ask that you take a moment to capture your feedback that provides us with really valuable insight to inform future webinars. I am excited to announce that today's webinar is co-presented with Partners for Rural Impact. So we love to start out our webinar Wednesdays with getting a little bit of sense of where you're joining us from and what representation and affiliation you have. So we'll have a series of 4 poll questions that we ask you to answer. The very first, and using this beautiful map that you see in front of you, where are you joining us from today? Might you be coming from the Northeast, the South, the Midwest, the West, perhaps internationally, like Canada or other places international? And I see folks putting in the chat, and also please make sure to pop that in the poll. All right, we have a bit of a majority coming today from the West, with a close second behind with the South. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. So the next poll really helps us to understand your affiliation within the field. So are you here representing a family resource center, a family resource center network, other family support programs? Might you be a parent leader, an early care and education specialist, in education, government, be it child welfare or other? Perhaps you represent a private funder or something else. Please take a second to indicate your affiliation. We have 41% representation from family resource centers and a really great diversity and array of representatives from other sectors. Thank you so much for filling out that poll. It's always helpful for the presenters also to know who's in the room. So the next question is, how familiar are you with family resource centers? I imagine we'll at least get 40% that says very familiar, but perhaps you're maybe only somewhat familiar. Or not familiar at all. So please take a quick moment and indicate your familiarity. So a fairly large amount of folks have at least heard of Family Resource Centers and have some level of familiarity, about an equal third, third, and third to being somewhat familiar to very familiar. We'll take a second to give a brief overview about Family Resource Centers today to help everyone come to the same page with a knowledge base as we explore this conversation of FRCs working with families in rural communities. And our last poll today is, to your knowledge, does your state have programs that look like Family Resource Centers? And I see that actually a vast majority have states that look like Family Resource Centers. That's fantastic to hear. And if you don't, we'd love to connect with you and your state to see how we might be able to help Family Resource Centers and Family Resource Center networks flourish where you're located. Thank you so much for your participation in our polls. It's great to see the wide array of diversity. So we'll start with just a moment's information about the National Family Support Network. So over the past decade, the NFSN has actually quadrupled in size. We started in 2011 with 8 state networks as our membership organization, and now we have over 41 member networks that include 40 states and the District of Columbia that represent over 3,000 family resource centers that serve more than 2 million people annually across the country. And our newest members to join were Wyoming in September and Iowa, who joined in December. So the National Family Support Network's mission is to promote positive outcomes for all children, families, and communities by leveraging the collective impact of state family resource center networks and championing quality family support and strengthening practices and policies. And our vision is simply to turn the whole map green so that all families have access to quality family support services in their communities, provided by FRCs, supported by strong networks. We have 3 core areas of work at the NFSN. The first is connecting and convening member networks to enhance their effectiveness. The second is promoting family support best practices and evaluation, which include the standards, national implementation, and as well as number 3, raising the visibility of the value and the impact of family strengthening and family support networks. So an overview of today's webinar, we'll start with a brief introduction of Family Resource Centers, and then we'll have our co-presenter from Partners for Rural Impact share a bit about their landscape analysis of what's happening within rural communities across the country and the unique aspects of serving these families and populations. Then we're turning it over to our 3 example family resource centers. The first will be the Cornerstone Resource Center. Next will be Polk County's Family Resource Center. And we'll conclude with the Northeast Kingdom Community Action Agency. And at the very end, we'll share some additional resources, upcoming trainings, webinars, and opportunities to connect, and conclude with our evaluation. So first on the slate, Family Resource Centers. So thousands of family resource centers have emerged organically across the country, yet their existence is still largely under the radar as America's best kept secret. A family resource center is a community or school-based welcoming hub of support, services, and opportunities designed to support families to be strong and successful. They may be community-based, like the image you see on the left of the Family Resource Center in Vermont, or they may be school-based, like the image you see on the right of the Family Resource Center in Kentucky. They may be in rural settings, like the image you see on the left from Colorado, or in urban settings, like the image you see on the right of a Family Resource Center in Bronx, New York City. And wherever they're based, family resource centers work with families with an approach that is not only 2-generational, but multi-generational, strengths-based, and family-centered. Each of these concepts is very important. Multi-generational, obviously you've heard of 2-gen approaches. Well, family support is not just the original 2-gen, but the original multi-generational approach, as programs work with children, parents, and grandparents as well. Also strengths-based, because we see families as having strengths that we want to support them to build upon, and family-centered because everything we do is at the center, has families at the center of it. They are designed for all families, not only low-income families or highly challenged ones. So the support they provide is non-stigmatizing, making it more readily accessible. Programming is provided at no cost or low cost for participants. And the image to the right that you can see here is of a family resource center in New Jersey. There are 57 family success centers across all of the state's 21 counties, which means that each county has at least one and typically more than one family success center. And this includes highly affluent counties, such as as well as highly challenged counties, because again, the belief is that all families can benefit from access to support for two of the most important roles that we can have as adults, being parents and being spouses or partners. Two of the most important roles that we could have for which we typically receive no support or training for. Hence the value of universal access to family resource centers. So the Strengthening Families Protective Factors. By a show of emojis right now, thumbs up, how many of you have heard of the Protective Factors framework before today? So, ooh, lots of claps and emojis and hearts coming in. I love seeing all of that. No surprise, since you all are fairly savvy about family resource centers. So you know that they come from the Center for the Study of Social Policy, and that research has shown that these 5 protective factors increase family stability, enhance child development, and reduce child abuse and neglect. So as we're working with families, we want to support them in building these protective factors because we know that they make a positive difference. And if you want more information on this, the link is at the bottom, where you can go to cssp.org and dive into the beautiful world of the Strengthening Family Protective Factors. So family resource centers, as conveniently located hubs, bundle and co-locate many of the services that may be familiar to you, such as home visiting, evidence-based parenting education, health screenings, playgroups, fatherhood programs, family counseling, and food banks. And despite their organic development and varied funding streams across the country, there's remarkable similarity in most of their common core service areas. These are the top 4 based on the research funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. The first is parenting support, which exists on a continuum from lighter touch to more intensive services. So lighter touch being parenting workshops and more intensive services being home visitation programs. Also access to resources, which also exists on a continuum from lighter touch to more intensive. For instance, enhanced information and referral being on the lighter side, and actually co-locating resources for families to access easily being on the heavier touch side. And activities focused on supporting children's healthy development and activities supporting parent leadership development, such as parent advisory councils, are the 2 other core common areas found most across family resource centers. And FRCs not only provide programs, but also build communities of peer support for families to develop social connections that reduce isolation and reduce stress, which are highly correlated to child abuse. I hope that provided a nice little context into family resource centers and what aligns us across the country. And I'm excited to show you today our lineup of presenters that we have will be sharing about their knowledge and their expertise for partnering with families in rural communities. And I just have to say before I'm introducing them that after living for 5 years, coming from San Francisco Bay Area, moving to southern rural Colorado to a community of 500, having my first daughter who was 1-year-old when I went there, and having my second daughter born at home while we lived there and raising them for those 5 years, I grew at a beautiful special affinity for rural communities and the unique struggles that families serve. And I tell you, the lineup today and the expertise and the stories that they have is absolutely phenomenal to helping really gain more insight and awareness into how to effectively support families who live in these rural communities. So today we have Jenny Hobson, who's the Director of Family Partnerships for Partners for Rural Community, for Rural Impact. And then our presenters from our Family Resource Centers today include Elizabeth Emmett, and she's the Director of Family, Youth, and Early Education Services at the Northeast Kingdom Community Action Agency in Vermont. And we'll have a special feature video presentation today by a grandparent participant from the Northeast Kingdom Community Action Agency, Cheryl Couture. We also will have, out of Colorado, in my neck of the woods, Rosie Gomez, who's the Executive Director from the Cornerstone Resource Center. We also have Victoria Ramirez, who's the Site Manager for Polk County Family Resource Centers in Minnesota. Also, with her today is Jennifer Campo, and she's the Family Resource Coordinator and Parent Leader, also with Polk County Family Resource Centers. So I will now bring in Jenny Hobson, who will share with us some insights from Partners for Rural Impact, where they've gained much insight into the work that they've been doing studying rural communities across the country. Jenny, we'll turn it on over to you.
Thank you. It is so good to be here with you today. Thanks for having us. I'm Jenny Hobson, Director of Family Partnership at Partners for Rural Impact, and we are honored to join in co-sponsoring this webinar today. Right now, I am talking to you from my office in Berea, Kentucky. And with the rich history in Kentucky of family resource centers being born out of system-changing education reform in the 90s, I've been personally lucky enough to be mentored by Family Resource Center staff throughout my career and to learn and take to heart that motto of whatever it takes. So I'm doubly and personally grateful to get to join you today to learn about the Family Resource Center work in rural spaces in many states and to share a bit about Family Partners for Rural Impact and the rural context for engaging families. Partners for Rural Impact, or you'll hear me say PRI, is a national organization working to ensure that all young people in rural America are on the path to upward mobility. You'll often see us engaged in the educational sector, meeting students and families where they are through place-based programs. We take a cradle to career approach, knowing that the path to upward mobility starts with birth and even before, and it doesn't stop when a youth moves that tassel to the side of their cap as a high school graduate. Post-secondary opportunities are essential. So as you look at this continuum, you'll see that families belong in every space and step of the way. As you know from your work in resource centers, no matter what the circumstances, parents and caregivers want their children to be safe, healthy, and supported, and they want their children to have opportunities to build a successful life. No one agency, school, organization, caring adult can make success for students happen on our own, and families are central partners. You can go to the next slide. So that's a bit about PRI. The National Family Support Network asked me to provide a little context for the stories and strategies that you're going to hear from the presenters today. So let's talk a little bit about rural. We start with strengths and rural places and rural people's central place in the economic vitality of America. 97% of American land is rural, meaning we house the stewardship of food, energy, water, and other life essential resources serving the nation. 1 in 5 people, 20% of all Americans, live in rural places. Rural places are hubs for manufacturing, energy, agriculture, and forestry. And rural places are also homes to small businesses with higher rates of entrepreneurship and higher 5-year survival rates for those businesses. So with all that being said, these communities should be places of upward mobility for the people that live in them, especially young people. But if I ask you to describe the rural communities that you're a part of or that you know, it's unlikely that upward mobility would be the first thing that comes to your mind. So we know there are challenges. 20% of young Americans go to school in rural places, and this is what we know about rural schools. They have fewer resources to support students. During this time of increased mental health needs among our youth, the ratio of students to school counselors is particularly high in rural schools. Rural schools serve a high percentage of students living in poverty, 1 in 7. And in most states, rural schools receive inequitable funding compared to the number of students they serve. Still, rural students are more likely to graduate high school than their suburban or urban counterparts. They have lower rates of college enrollment. We can Broadening the picture beyond schools, we know that young people in rural places face unique challenges in their community, whether that's a lack of after-school and summer programming, whether that's lack of post-secondary institutions in the community, lack of broadband, limits on public transportation. And historically, there's been an underinvestment by philanthropy to support rural communities. Without the resources, it's more difficult for students to access opportunities that lead them to upward mobility. In the next few moments, you're going to hear directly from the people who are bright spots for rural families and how they are making opportunities happen for rural youth. For just a moment, here's what we do at PRI as our contribution towards creating opportunity for rural youth. We drive resources and investment by convening rural stakeholders to advocate for policy changes at the state and federal level. And to that effect, since 2022, we've secured over $130 million in private and public funding for rural communities across America. We strengthen civic infrastructure in rural places so that residents and local organizations have the systems they need and they want to move outcomes for their rural youth and children. And we increase access to high-quality programs, such as working to ensure all rural youth have access to a community school. You can go to the next slide. PRI is a big organization. I wanted to tell you just a little bit about our family engagement approach. First, we bring together emerging family leaders to build family villages, villages that meet to enable individuals to take their own strengths and then work together on projects to enhance their communities and schools as good places to raise children. Second, we train educators and community-based organization staff on best practices for engaging families in their children's education from cradle to career. And I know that I do not need to say any more about those best practices to this group as you're engaged in them every day in your work in the resource centers. To learn more about our approach in particular, I'd like to invite you to visit the website for the New Hampshire Statewide Family Engagement Center, which is currently our largest family engagement project. And to that same end, we'd like to invite you to join us in September in New Hampshire for the Northern New England Rural Summit, where we'll be talking about the power of centering families. Finally, we'd love to hear about what's going on in your neck of the woods, in your rural spaces, and to connect around family engagement. So here's my contact information. I would love to hear from you, and I'm going to pass it back to Brenda to give you the chance to hear from these amazing presenters today.
Thank you so much, Jenny. We appreciate the Partners for Rural Impact sharing the insights that you've gained in you working in this space. I am excited to introduce our next presenter. So we have Rosie Gomez from the Cornerstone Resource Center, who will share a bit about their work in Colorado. Rosie, I'll turn it on over to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rosie Gomez, Executive Director at the Cornerstone Resource Center down in the southeast corner of Colorado. In Lamar. So this is a picture of our building. We currently only have 6 employees, so it's a pretty small building. We're working on making it bigger. So go ahead, Brenda, sorry. So we are a nonprofit organization. The Cornerstone Resource Center was thought of through the Powers County Child Maltreatment Prevention Framework back in 2018. Community partners came together and thought a resource hub was needed, and so they began the work. We opened doors October 2nd of 2020 during the pandemic. We have been a member of the Family Resource Center Association since May 24th of 2021, and currently thriving and doing really well. We have a board of directors of 10 active members. And one of our biggest, and I think that we are most proud of, is that we have the Cornerstone Connector, which is a mobile unit, an RV, that we travel to rural areas to provide resources to 3 counties we serve. So our mission, the Cornerstone Resource Center strives to support residents of Southeast Colorado in accessing the help and support that they need to grow, develop, and lead healthy lives. Our mission is to strengthen and empower individuals and families through connections to resources and services, and develop confidence and knowledge to live successful lives and facilitate growth in our communities. Our vision is strong and resilient communities where all individuals are accepted, empowered, self-reliant, and thriving. So we have a few programs at the Cornerstone Resource Center. One of them being probably our biggest one is our diaper bank. We currently receive diapers from a program called WeCycle, and we pick them up every couple of months. We're able to provide diapers for all households in the counties that we serve, and we have 50 diapers and 1 package of wipes per child that we're able to deliver. We also provide many resources and referrals. We are able to help with, if they're behind on their city bill. We have an Atmos grant that is for their gas. We just provide different resources. Referrals are made constantly. We refer to different agencies that we partner with, either in our area or out of our area as well. We currently have the early intervention program that serves 4 different counties. And I think we have about 30 to 40 children currently on the early intervention, which serves children 0 through the age of 3. To the age of 3, stops at 3. And it's a really thriving program. We do really good for the community. We also have another piece, which is kinship navigation respite care. So if families, foster families have children, we're able to provide some respite care for them and some navigation. We have a car seat safety program where we're able to provide car seats in the counties that we serve as well. We have them come in and we have someone that is certified to be able to install them. Nurturing parenting classes, that is something that we offer through a grant. And right now, I think we have 4 different cohorts going on, and we have a lot of our referrals coming from like TANF, Department of Human Services, the court, but they're all volunteer basis, and we also have some self-referrals. Budgeting and life skills are 2 separate things, but is something that we also offer. We have CPR, and along with CPR, we have babysitter training as well. This is very helpful, especially for those kids that are like 12 to 16 to 18 that are wanting to babysit at home. We're able to provide them some training so they're able to do that during the summer. The next slide. Application assistance. We help with numerous applications. We really don't so do a select few. Anything that anybody comes in here into the office, we try to help with. The main ones being like SNAP and Medicaid, CHP Plus, those kind of applications. I talked a little bit about our mobile unit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's one of our big ones is our Cornerstone Connector. That's the name. Family, friends, and neighbors. This is for family, friends, and neighbors that are unlicensed that provide child daycare in their home. We have a great support group, both in English and Spanish, that happen once a month. And it's continuously growing. We're getting ready to launch another FFM program in a different county that we serve. We have many child development activities at the Resource Center. We currently have what we call our Summer and the Fun activities that are every Thursday night from 5 to 7 p.m. And we probably have about anywhere from 20 to 40 families that come to those on a weekly basis. Basic needs assistance, like I said before, this could be anything like from our utility assistance to, needing money for an application to get into housing, whatever it might be, we can help with that. Family development services, this is really crucial in our area, especially, with being a family resource center. When a family comes in, we're able to provide these services to see what they're needing. Like Brenda was talking about the Strengthening Families Protective Factors. We also do CFSAs just to see where families are needing help with and what their priorities are and what their bigger needs are. Dental education, these are all grant-based, and we currently have served about 150 children in our area, 0 through the age of 6, with dental screenings and dental fluoride treatments. And we currently have one coming up July 9th at our center that is going to be our summer outreach fair. And so we'll be providing the dental education and services there as well. And then our I think one that is very dear to my heart is the support for seniors. We help anyone that comes into the center, but one of the biggest ones is during the holidays, we get gifts for the seniors and we deliver to the different nursing homes or homebound seniors that just to, give them a little bit of cheer for the holiday season. And then our mobile unit, the Cornerstone Connector, we are in the process of getting this wrapped. So I'm sorry that you didn't get the final look of what our RV is going to look like, but maybe in the future I'll be able to share that with you. We purchased this in July of 2022 through a Caring for Colorado grant. And this was just brought up to increase access to resources in the rural areas of Prowers, Baca, and Kiowa County. We serve about 20 to 30 families a month by providing this RV mobile connector, and we're able to provide the same resources we do in-house. We're able to provide them here. Families, but currently we just have, a little logo on the door, but a lot of the families in the areas that we serve, they know of us. And I'm thinking that when we have this wrapped, we'll be able to be more family friendly. They're not, if you park by the park, they're going to know that it's us and not, oh, I wonder what that RV is doing there. So we're working on this being wrapped. And we also were able to get another grant through the Caring for Colorado grant, the DOLA grant, to be able to wrap this as well. Very proud of this Cornerstone Connector. How do we offer services? Or most importantly, we would like to offer them all in person, either at the center, a mobile unit, or any other location if needed. There are times that we do partner with other agencies, and they're like, if you're able to provide those parenting classes here, we can do that. We're very flexible with that. Another big one is virtually. Sometimes we have families that, live, we're a very rural area. So we have families that sometimes have an issue with transportation. So then we are able to provide either in person or virtually. We don't turn anyone down if they're wanting to do a class, and that's the only way we can do it. We will gladly do that for them. We have even done services through phone calls where they're listening to it. We're able to get them the materials either through a mobile connector or through mail. But these are the different ways that we're able to offer services to our families in the counties that we serve. Our social norming work, this is done through our family support through primary prevention. This is very big right now through our summer and the fun activities that happen on Thursdays. And this is just some pictures of some of those activities. But we encourage families to meet new people they don't know. There has been some great things through this work. We have been able to connect families maybe to help with like pickup after school with, and they build great, strong relationships with other families. The children are able to socialize with other children. These events have also brought in, like, say, our fire department, our police department, elected officials. And so that families are more comfortable being able to address those people if they see them in public, just because sometimes, there's that fear of talking to somebody in those positions. So this social norming work has really helped us get the community to understand each other and get to know each other better, and no fear. And this is a little bit of pictures of our family, friends, and neighbors. We were able to partner up with our local community college to pamper those providers that are not licensed to provide daycare, but do it from their homes. And so this is the whole gist of this program, is this support them by giving them things that they need, tools that they need, either be like nutrition, it could be safety, things that, top-roof their home. But this is just our appreciation to our local FFN providers that take care of our children here. And this is my contact information. Like I said, we are a very rural area down in Southeast Colorado. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can visit our website. But thank you.
Rosie, thank you so very much for representing Colorado on today's webinar and for showcasing the array of services. I think the number of hearts and claps that came in when you showed that wonderful Sprinter van, RV that you're taking around to serve families is such an innovative way to reach families in places that are further out from your center. So thank you so much for your time today. And now we will be turning it on over to Minnesota. We have with us today Polk County Family Resource Centers and our two presenters, Victoria and Jennifer. And I'll turn it on over to them to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Victoria Ramirez, the Polk County Family Resource Center Manager, and I'm very excited to be here with you today to share with you how we work with our families in our rural communities. And co-presenting with me today is Jennifer Campo.
Hi, thanks. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Jennifer Campo, and I'm a Family Resource Coordinator with Polk County Family Resource Centers, as well as I've recently had the opportunity to begin serving as a family and parent representative on our statewide Community Resource Center Advisory Council, with a focus on using my rural voice to represent the FRCs.
The Polk County Family Resource Centers are proudly co-managed by Polk County Social Services and our community action partner, Tri-Valley Opportunity Council. Our mission here is that the Polk County Family Resource Center is a safe and welcoming space for all, providing access to community resources that support family strengths and is parent and caregiver driven. A little bit about Polk County. We're up in the northwest corner of Minnesota. We have about 11.6% of the population are below the poverty line. We have at our county seat, city of Crookston, has about 50% of the students are eligible for free and reduced meals or categorized as economically disadvantaged. And our community is mostly agricultural community. A little bit of a breakdown on our race and ethnicity is, we are predominantly out of a 31,000 population from the 2020 census. It's predominantly white Caucasian at 85%, with the next group, race and ethnicity group, being at 6%, and then following our Black and African American population at 3.1%. A little overview of Polk County Family Resource Centers is we're fairly new. We've only been in existence for a little over a year. Our first site was developed on June 1st, 2023. We have a pop-up site at our public library. We have one brick and mortar site. And we are currently in pre-implementation stages for 2 pop-up sites in 2 very rural communities, less than 1,000 individuals that live in those rural communities. Next slide. Here is our first site, our pop-up site in Crookston. It is located at our public library. The population of Crookston is about 7,000. We reserve the meeting space at the library, and we have FRC staff that are available in 2-hour time slots about 4 times a week. And we share a monthly calendar with our community so they know when we're available. Our next site was developed on November 14th, 2023. This is our brick and mortar site. It is located in the city of East Grand Forks. East Grand Forks has a population of about 9,000. Our hours of operation are from 10 to 5, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Okay, how did we start? We started by establishing a need. As many government agencies and nonprofits and community businesses were all trying to navigate the waters post-COVID, some recurring themes were coming from our children collaborative meetings and other stakeholder discussions. First was a great concern for growing negative impacts for families, like increased mental health symptoms, increased financial instability, increased isolation. And 2 was how to re-engage with families after disengaging for nearly 2 years during the pandemic. Our county director was informed about the family resource model, and it appeared to be a good fit for addressing our needs. We used our public health needs assessment and our parent assessment survey to find the data that would support the need for a family resource center. The next 3 steps going in tandem together, creating buy-in, gaining support, building momentum by using social capital and leveraging resources. Social capital is a set of shared values or resources that allows individuals to work together in a group to effectively achieve a common purpose through personal connections. Through using and building our social capital, we were able to gain support from our county commissioners, our core stakeholders, community partners, and families. Leveraging community resources, the practice of using the available assets and tools to maximize one's output and achieve desired outcomes effectively. This is where our partnerships come into play, finding what each partner needs, can contribute, and commit to in creating win-win situations. For example, we partnered with our local school district. They needed to build extra supports for their growing homeless population and requested for us to provide a hygiene closet and coordinate resources for their youth. In return, they were able to give us in-kind physical space to operate out of. We were both able to gain positive outcomes from collaboration and our common goal to serve and support families. Next slide.
Okay, the co-management piece between our local social service agency and Tri-Valley Opportunity Council, which is our community action agency, significantly has reduced the barriers to accessing our different community programs and concrete supports, while also helping us here at the FRC to foster an environment that is welcoming to families that have struggled to find access to these different supports. Some of the county supports that we have in regularly are the child support consultations, WIC consultations, the economic assistance program support, peer recovery for addiction and recovery services, Career Force, which is helpful for people entering employment or re-entering the workforce. They help with navigating job applications and different other barriers that we face in rural communities, like transportation is a huge one. And then having Tri-Valley Opportunity Council as our community action agency provides access to immediate concrete support needs such as utility disconnections, homelessness, help with deposits, and many other things. And then Aluma is our mental health organization that we is one of our core stakeholders, and they help with, we're able to coordinate with them to do workshops and various things. And then also a piece that is relatively new here is the cultural navigation services. We have a high Somalian and Arabic community in East Grand Forks, and we have been able to partner with a cultural navigator that speaks Somali and Arabic languages and has a really great relationship within our school district and between the families of that culture. Next slide. Some incredible family programs that I, as a family resource coordinator, have been able to help facilitate are, we had a take and bake event where we had contracted with a organization that prepared meals for families to come and pick up and take home and prepare. That was thanks to a grant for our child protection unit with the county social service agency for, I believe April was child abuse and neglect prevention month. So we know that hunger is one of the biggest factors in child abuse. So providing meals to people for free to come and pick up, I felt was a really great opportunity. And also we have done haircut, back to school haircuts. Again, just relieving some of that pressure that families feel by having an opportunity to book a haircut for free is really important here. As well as recently our Play and Learns have really kind of become a really great thing as we develop and build with community partners. We have an activity every month, and then recently I've added a community partner to do an educational component, which seems to be very popular here. And back to Victoria.
Highlights and approaches used in serving rural families. What factors played a role in developing our FRC in our rural communities? As I reflect back on what helped us to be successful in our development, it really was about social capital, what we have in small rural communities, the personal connections that we create, the way we reciprocate to each other's requests and favors, the way we partner up and leverage our community resources. We take an environmental scan of our community and see what's already available that looks like the support and service we need and tap into that. Living in rural communities, you know your community, not only because of the data and statistics that you evaluate, but by living and having shared experiences with your community. You understand the needs and the culture of your community, and by engaging parents. I'll hand it back to Jen.
Yes. So I came upon this position. I have grown up in this community and faced several, I don't want to necessarily call them barriers or obstacles, but I had to use a lot of the community resources that are offered to find success in my life. And that is how I was introduced to Victoria and through the FRC and learned about the model. And I am still to this day using a lot. I have 2 small children that are in this program, and I bring them to every event that we host, and am able to connect with parents and families and even individuals on that level. And, you know, I learned a lot from Victoria just by how she built the use her social capital from her position with the county social services agency and all of the core stakeholders to also do that when helping and leveraging family strengths and building those, which I think is really important. And I'd love to discuss further. And I know my contact information is going to be at the end if anybody would like to connect to hear more about how I've done that. Collecting stats and stories is really important as well. And I've just started documenting different things that parents have shared with me, and look forward to continuing to build our relationships so that I can get them to share, or hopefully encourage them to share their stories. And just the overall family centeredness that we have here. It's really our community values want everyone to be successful, and that aligns with what this program does. And I'll pass it back to Victoria.
Yeah, I'd like to just add to the helpful takeaways as I again reflect back. One is starting small. Like, I think you know, you don't have to have the brick and mortar, and you don't have to have the Cadillac of services, but start with the current supports and services that you have and see what you can leverage, and then build from there. And then being adaptable, because as you're working with your core stakeholders and your families, what you first originally started with as a business plan or a work plan most definitely will change, and you'll have to be able to adapt with that. The other one is start a parking lot. Scott County is our first county in the state of Minnesota to have a family resource center. And I had the privilege of spending some time and touring their resource center before I started. And that was the best tidbit that they also shared with me, was they started a parking lot. They said, and they were 100% correct. As you go to meetings and you're meeting with community partners and stakeholders, you're going to get thrown a lot of amazing ideas about services and programs that they want the FRC to do. And it is very easy to get distracted from your focus, mission, and vision. So starting a parking lot to help you and not dismiss anyone's ideas, but just writing them down and helps you prioritize. And you're able to kind of go back to them when you build the capacity to go back and look at those ideas and see what you can implement. Next slide. Yeah, and here's our contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to email or contact us.
Thank you so much, Victoria and Jennifer. I really appreciate your insight and your perspective. It's so valuable as you think about starting from scratch, and not only having such success in year 1, but having so much success that you expanded to 2 locations just in the last 2 years is a huge feat. And the work that you're doing in Minnesota is incredible. Thank you so very much. And we'll see you again in a moment for the panel conversation. So our last presenter representing the Northeast Kingdom Community Action Agency is Elizabeth Emmett, who's coming to us today from Vermont. And this is our longest standing Family Resource Center presenting on today's webinar. So Elizabeth, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hello from Vermont. And I want to say 40 plus years in, you still need a parking lot. Because once you become a place in the community where families and community partners look to you to support things, they still come to you for everything that doesn't fit in anybody else's bucket, if you will. So I'm here to tell you about NECA, and that is the Northeast Kingdom Community Action Agency. So yeah, we say NECA over and over and over again. So Community Action is a long-standing network of agencies across the United States. And as you heard from one of our other partners there, they're partnering with a Family Resource Center. For us in Vermont, we've been doing this work over 40 years in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, which is the northeast corner, if you will, of the state. Our mission and vision is to see all generations thrive. And how we do that is through an integrated approach for any individual or family. And community action agencies are addressing poverty and trying to move that social capital along and move families through mobilization into that place of stability and wellness, what that means for them, what does security and well-being look like for them, letting them drive the bus. And so we are very committed to equitable approaches, inclusive practices, and putting families at the center of where they're trying to go and really trying to wrap the services around them that they're looking for. Like I said, we've been doing this for over 40 years. And one of the ways that I think makes our agency unique is that we're really trying to address these social issues from all levels of intervention. We are very much working with children and families at the forefront, but we're also addressing these issues at our community level, as well as our state level. And of course, in these types of forums at a national level to really try to change policy, mindsets, programs, and a family's lives at the heart of it. The next slide kind of gives a really great image, in my opinion, of how our agency functions. So instead of looking at it like an org chart, we really try to holistically show that for our agency, our mission and our vision and our values are the baseline for everything. That's really something we strive for, is that culture of inclusivity, human-centeredness, compassion, fluidity, all of the things that doesn't matter which department, which door somebody walks in. Our thought here is that there is no wrong door for an individual, a family to enter into, regardless of the moment of whether it's crisis or intervention that they're in. That it doesn't matter what door they walk through. It's about partnering, walking alongside, and really trying to see what success looks like for them. So we have, of course, our board, which is made up of community members and participants. We have a parent advisory council, as well as a policy council through our Head Start services that really advise all of the work at our agency. We have a development and data department, an HR department, fiscal, and of course that diversity, equity, and inclusion team and committee that support all of the programs and services at NECA. And the next slide zooms into what those three departments of programs and services are. And something that I think makes NECA really unique is that we're really integrating these three spheres. On the left, the community, economic and community-based services is really where you can think of like the traditional community action services living. So that's everything from food access, housing and homelessness services, clothing access, utility support, and economic supports and money coaching. So all of those services live within that department and kind of come through that funding stream. But on the right, our family, youth, and early ed services are really that family resource center work. In Vermont, we call them parent-child centers through our network. And then below, you see the Head Start and Early Head Start, which is another huge component of our agency. And that supports families and children, of course, with meeting those holistic needs. But oftentimes with a family at the center, again, no matter which one of those doors they came through to sort of access services at NECA, we're really trying to see what is it holistically that your family needs support in. And no matter what door you came through, how can we really integrate services around you, blend and braid our own resources, integrate our services at NECA so that you don't need to know the name of the program or the grant that serves you. You just need to ask for what you need help with. And any one of these mixture of services can wrap around your family. Another thing that I think is really interesting that the next slide kind of points to is in each one of those spheres, because we're a longstanding agency, we're connected with these 3 networks across our state and our national level, which really provides a unique amount of resources that we can blend and braid and leverage in our region to meet these holistic needs without going outward into other agencies. And for us, serving this vast region that we're serving is really helpful. So again, in the community action world, we are part of the Vermont Community Action Partnership, as well as the National Community Action Partnership, the Vermont Parent-Child Center Network, as well as this National Family Support Network, and the Head Start Vermont Association, as well as the Head Start National Association. So again, from the parent voice to the organizational level, to the regional level, to the state level and the national level, we have the ability to sit at all these tables and advocate for the policies and the programs and the grants to actually support what parents and families need. And that allows us to do a lot of great integrative work at our own agency and work towards a true 2-generation whole family approach that moves families along in their goals. This is a snapshot from our website of all of the NECA programs. And I would say historically, those 3 circles of programs were very siloed. And we found that in our region, it wasn't always a no wrong door approach. It was, you came into one door, you might never hear about the other doors. And so we've been working really hard at integrating our whole agency that no matter where you come in, a family can access any of these resources, no matter what door they walk into. So our food and clothing programs happen again across the whole Northeast Kingdom, and we'll see a map of this later on in the slides. But we do have 5, we call them marketplaces, but is your typical sort of food shelf. But we call it a marketplace because our methodology there is we actually set it up like a marketplace or a grocery store, and families can actually walk through and choose the types of things that they want to eat. They can learn recipes and engage in classes around food access and not just sort of come in the door and be handed a box and leave. So we have 5 marketplaces throughout the Northeast Kingdom, 2 boutiques with free clothing access, and 1 community thrift store that also engages in workforce development and other community fun events at the thrift store. We also do some pop-up clothing events here and there when we have extra resources. Our housing support department supports homelessness services as well as maintaining safe and secure housing for anybody and everybody. We have some programs through the Department of Corrections to actually help folks reintegrate into community after being incarcerated. So there's a lot of housing supports across the gamut at NECA. Heating and utility is really important in this rural region and in our climate because especially during the winter time, things get really cold and keeping your home warm and safe becomes really hard for a lot of folks. So our crisis fuel is what it's called in Vermont is a really critical program that families and individuals need to access to be able to keep their homes warm. Under children, youth, and family, sorry, can you go back? Children, youth, and family are all the, again, supports and services we're talking about today, but that doesn't mean that children, youth, and family can't access any of those other things on the screen. But we do always like to highlight that we have the Head Start and Early Head Start center-based programs, as well as all the home visiting components. We have a whole youth advocacy department that supports teenagers and families, children's integrated services, which we'll get into in a minute, and our 2 family resource centers or parent-child centers. We have a whole economic equity department that, as you can see, helps with taxes, micro business, money and energy coaching, and accessing to broadband internet, which is a really tricky thing in the Northeast Kingdom. And then last but not least is our community social justice department. And that's really focused on restorative practices, court diversion programs, helping both youth and adults divert the court system, come to true restorative places. And that kind of threads through our whole agency. Because of the DEI work, that department really leads us in what diversity, equity, inclusion looks like in that sphere. If I were to go through all of the specific NECA programs, I think it would take a 3-hour slideshow. So that's the briefest way I could put it. The next is really highlighting our core family services. And these come from the 8 core services from our parent-child center network in Vermont. And we all serve families in these 8 core services ways. There are a lot of the things that you heard my colleagues in the other states talk about, all kinds of parent support and education classes, home visits. Concrete supports include everything I just mentioned, from diapers to food to electric shutoff supports, transportation supports. We do a lot of community development and fun activities for the community to get together and build social capital. Our most recent one this last weekend, actually we had 3 this last weekend. We had a Pride event, which I have a picture of later in the slideshow. We did a teddy bear pancake breakfast where you can come and adopt a teddy bear and eat some pancakes and cook together. Play groups happen across the Northeast Kingdom, both at our centers as well as partnering with our local libraries, and sometimes doing trips to local parks and getting families out and about across the kingdom. We do have early childhood education supports through our centers, but because we also have our 8 Head Start locations, we offer early childhood education as a center-based, but we also support our local family home-based programs and other child cares in the area where we're highly partnering with what they need. And of course, information and referral, we're connecting families internally to all the NECA resources and externally to all of the resources in our region constantly. So we always say it's a real no wrong door. Whether we actually offer the service or not, we welcome families coming and asking the question, because if we don't provide it, we know who does, and we can help with those more than warm handoffs to get them connected to the resources they need. I wanted to highlight those components of the 2-generation or whole family approach because NECA is situated in that manner where we are the parent-child center, the Head Start, as well as the Community Action Agency all in one. We are really working hard, again, over the last few years to de-silo ourselves and be able to really be integrated within our own services to support families in that holistic way. But also because no one agency can do it alone. There are components of that whole family approach that we need to highly partner with our community partners in the area on. And I just wanted to say that takes a whole lot of work that we're really dedicated to. Again, integrating ourselves as a huge agency over a vast distance and region has been really hard work, but we're proud to say we're really getting there to the point where a lot of these wheels we can do within NECA. But the idea is that for any family to really have that true no wrong door, one point of contact, and one sort of coach that's really moving them long term across their goals can truly really help families with that economic mobility. And to do that work, one of my takeaways working in this region is that it takes that really intentional collaboration, connection, and relationships within your own agency as well as within your community partner agencies, because there aren't enough resources to go around, and yet this is the need. So we need to play nice in the sandbox. We need to talk as a community about how we truly integrate our services and the systems that help families navigate through it. And in the Northeast Kingdom, we have 2 accountable health networks that are working on this work alongside NECA, as well as state partners who are really trying to work at that policy level to change the rules and regulations so that we can do this holistic work without so many limits and barriers, specifically from the funding stream side. So in the Northeast Kingdom, we have NEK Prosper and Vibrant One. which are 2 regional accountable health networks that pull together all of our human services and behavioral services across the Northeast Kingdom. We meet monthly, and we also have work groups that are really trying to address these issues at a region-wide level to help families access all of our services. I wanted to highlight 2 unique partnerships within NECA and our Parent-Child Center work that really highlight this level of collaboration that is needed to address the need across such a vast region. The first one is called DULCE, and that's the Developmental Understanding and Legal Collaboration for Everyone, which is a mouthful, so we're just going to call it DULCE for now. It is a national model that Vermont adopted, which places a family specialist, and that just means a specialist who's used to working with children and families and supporting them in these holistic services kind of ways. We actually embed a family specialist worker, so that would be a NECA employee, into a pediatric office. And so they are meeting with families from 0 through 6 months of age at all of their well child checkups. It's an additional person in those appointments who's creating a really warm and trusting relationship, asking some of the questions and conversations that sometimes are more stigmatized or harder to have with your health service provider, and being able to be a real teammate, both to the medical team and the Parent-Child Center team, to wrap that family in needs at the earliest possible time that we can learn about, again, any of those protective factors. So again, DULCE stands for Developmental Understanding and Legal Collaboration for Everyone. And the picture there illustrates the team that meets weekly to wrap around these families, the family specialist, who again is embedded into the pediatric practice, who's meeting with families at their well child visits, the medical provider, which is the pediatric doctor who meets with those families, a mental health consultant, an early childhood systems representative, a legal partner, and the clinic administrator who's administering all the work that happens at the pediatric clinic. That team meets together to really wrap around each family who presents needs to say, what are all the things in our region that we can help them with? What are all the resources? And support that family specialist in supporting that family. So that family specialist has a whole host of partners that come from around our region that come together to support families. And that the biggest thing to remember there is it's for everyone. So this is a universal approach for every baby and child that comes through a pediatric practice, gets to have this help and support if they want it. And that's a really unique model that has been really successful in Vermont. We're proud to be a part of the DULCE model. And the other one is our Children's Integrated Services. Children's Integrated Services is, again, a unique Vermont approach to services like early intervention, early childhood family mental health supports, nursing, early nursing supports, and general family support if it doesn't fall into one of those other categories. These services are provided. We have a logo of the kite there because we actually have 4 community partners who team together to provide these services. So NECA is the fiscal agent for this, and we also provide the early intervention piece, and we also provide the family support piece, but we partner with our local mental health agency to provide the early childhood mental health supports. We partner with our local hospitals and Northern Counties Healthcare to provide the nursing supports. And we partner with Umbrella, who's our local SV and DV agency, our prevention agency, because they provide the specialized childcare financial supports to help families access childcare with special needs. So it's, again, just a real picture of the only way to do this across a vast region is to partner with our partner organizations, to highly collaborate, to make decisions together. And in both of these cases, the idea is that that first contact with the family is your service provider who can navigate you to all the other integrated services there possibly could be, so that the family and the child only have to make one relationship, only have to tell their story once, and can develop that really trusting partnership that helps them navigate all the resources without having to knock on 1 million doors, drive to 1 million service providers. The idea in both of these cases is that you have one person helping you navigate the complex systems, so that we always say we do all the backflips in the background, so that the family really just has to do their work once, and we do all the other work to make it easier for them. And so I've been saying Northeast Kingdom over and over and over again, and I like to share the picture of the state of Vermont and what that means. The Northeast Kingdom is that northeast quadrant of the state. It covers 3 different counties. That is Caledonia County, Orleans County, and Essex County. It's about the size of Delaware, has about 65,000 in population. There's 48 small towns sprinkled around there, and there's really 2 general hubs. But even these 2 hubs are still pretty rural, small town places in Vermont. And so transportation is a gigantic barrier to get to these hubs, to get from the hubs out to families, and especially during the winter months, over and under different mountains and rivers. It's really tricky. Similar to the other demographics mentioned, it's a very agricultural based place. It is certainly less invested in across our state as a region. So there's not as many resources, there's not as many service providers. And so families and individuals have to travel a great distance sometimes to get the care that they need. So one of our main strategies is to bring the services to them whenever we can. So this is a little map zoomed into those 3 counties of where we're currently located for our family resources. There's an additional couple of community action sites that are maybe like just a food shelf, if you will, or just this or just that. But these sites that I'm showing here are our 2 NECA parent-child centers and our 8 Head Start locations. So our 2 parent-child centers have the holistic services that I mentioned. All of those services I mentioned, you can physically access at the 2 parent-child centers. But at these green Head Start centers, historically, you can only access as a family the center-based childcare, and you do have home visitors and family partners who help you access the other resources. But what we're moving towards as a model on the next page is this idea that truly all of our locations can become family resource centers. So we're working intentionally to, again, blend and braid our resources, blend and braid our personnel, and really leverage so that when families access any one of these resource centers, all of those services are available or can be brought to them quickly and easily. And so that's the sort of the only way we figured out to do it. And some of the ways we do that are those, our home visits is huge. Being able to physically go out to families, meet them where they're at, and provide as many resources as we can sort of in one visit, the better. So the comprehensive intake, asking all the questions, and really trying to navigate services around for families, bringing services to them. We do have 2 mobile outreach vans. I don't remember if that's the next slide or not, but I thought it was. We have mobile outreach vans that do pop-up locations in the areas where you see we don't have a van or we don't have a site. So we bring our little van out all sorts of places and make sure that we bring those resources outward. And recently when we did our Pride event, in the back of that van, we did a little pop-up clothing event for gender neutral and gender affirming clothing. So we get really creative with our mobile outreach. And before I close up, we have a video here from a grandparent participant. She videoed herself telling you a little bit about her experience with NECA and her experience of how accessing these resources looks for her. So we'll share her video and then I'll close up with my contact info.
When my daughter was born, she was in the hospital for 3 days. And when she came home, me and my husband at the time adopted her on May 6, 2019, when she was 21 months old. I had a home nurse come by the house every week. She would weigh her and check and make sure she was healthy and give us information. I also had another home visitor during that time who helped me with other things related to my goals, which was Buzogen and how to help the baby gain weight. When my daughter and I became homeless 2 years ago because of an abusive husband, NECA, Northeast Kingdom Community Action, helped us get into a motel. After we were in the motel, a housing case manager was assigned to help me find a place that I could afford. She helped me do all the paperwork to the right people, and NECA also offered a home visitor during that time who visits us as Motel Weekly. She helped me and my daughter, who was having a lot of challenging behavior because of the traumas that she's been through. The home visit connected me with respite for my daughter to give me and her a break from each other. and also helped me get an individual assessment so she could attend childcare when she wasn't in school. She also helped me with difficult things to do at home to help my daughter learn how to manage her emotions, and also helped me connect my daughter to Children's Services at a mental health agency. Once we moved into the new apartment, NECA helped me to buy things I needed, such as a freezer, so I wouldn't have to drive 50 miles to the grocery store every day, and that way I could freeze some food. And they also bought a little storage unit for my daughter so she could put her toys in it, because she has a lot. My family support housing case manager still visits me at the apartment to help me with the goals about budgeting and saving for a house I want to own one day. My family support home visitor still visits and helps me with my daughter. I also go to parent cafes that NECA has. There I have learned through a lot of people that I'm not alone. Other people.
Thank you, Cheryl. And during that time, can you think about a circumstance when it might have been difficult accessing any resources, even with the home visitors that you had? Was there a time when it was still difficult, and how did they help you through those times?
Yeah, I was still having problems with trying to find a place, for her to go where she could make friends and stuff. And my case manager, she helped me. She hooked me up to Northeast Kingdom Human Services. She helped me fill out the paperwork, and I was put on a waiting list. And after a year's time, I'm finally connected with them, and my daughter is now goes out to the community with my worker, and she also goes to play groups.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's my contact information if anybody has questions, and I really appreciate everybody's time, and especially appreciate Cheryl for sharing her story with us.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We greatly appreciate your overview and detailed description of how you're working with families in Vermont and the rich history of 40 years plus that you have in working with families in your community. So at this point, we will invite back all of the presenters to turn on their cameras, and we have about 5 minutes for a panel discussion. So wanted to kick it off first. We'll start with the first presenters moving backwards to give Elizabeth a chance to have a sip of water. So we'll start with Colorado. What has been, really briefly, the biggest challenge that you've faced reaching families, and the creative solution that worked best to address that challenge? So also, Jenny, invite you to answer any of these questions also as one of our panelists. So Jenny, do you have any insights on this one?
I am not sure why I popped up in the spotlight, so I will turn it over to Colorado for their on-the-ground experience.
Do we have Rosie with us still? If you want, Rosie, you can unmute yourself and hop on in.
Okay, can you repeat that, Brenda? Sorry, I was trying to get back on here.
Not a problem. Just curious about what would you say the biggest challenge has been in working with families in rural communities, and what's been your #1 most creative solution to address it?
Biggest challenge working with, the biggest challenge for us is probably transportation. Not being able to get to us because, they don't have the means to do it, or they don't have the money to do it. So I think the way we kind of address that is by utilizing our RV and going to them at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on the need.
So that mobile transportation piece being really key. Yes.
It really is. It really is. And I think also being able to offer the services virtually or by phone.
Well, and I know I'm not the only one. Very excited to see what that beautiful beast looks like when it's fully wrapped. So you'll have to ping us on social media or on Facebook, or we can put it in our newsletter once it's fully wrapped to show everyone what you've come up with. Thanks so much for sharing that, Rosie. Let's go to Minnesota. What's been the #1 challenge working within rural communities that you've encountered so far since you've been up and running, and your solution around it?
Yeah, so this is Victoria with Polk County in Minnesota, and I would have to agree with Rosie. One of the biggest challenges is the transportation, the ruralness, we have a lot of ground to cover in communities, very small communities, outside of the two big city locations that we have. And so, what we've done is we do have a FRC van, kind of like, not Colorado, but, the last presenter. We have a van that we're able to utilize to reach those communities as well. And so our goal, that's our pre-implementation stages, is to develop pop-up sites in those more rural communities to be able to reach those families.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's turn on over to Vermont. Number one challenge you've had reaching families in your community and your creative solution around it.
I would echo that transportation is huge. Of course, our mobile van helps, but I think that home visits are actually really utilized for us. Us being able to drive to wherever that home or childcare is to support or community-based space in their community, that is huge. And we're doing hundreds every week. It's astronomical, the amount of mileage that we cover to do that. I think that is one way. It also provides that intimate connection and relationship with a family. But the other thing, if we don't want to harp on transportation, is that idea of social capital, which I think all three of us touched on. Coming together and building community, particularly after COVID, was really challenging. And I think both not just incentivizing coming out to participate, but really making sure we're removing barriers for people to come. So making sure we're always providing childcare, serving a meal, and providing any other kind of barrier around gas cards or whatnot to help families come to those events and get warmed back up into community has been really, really important, because we also want them to be able to have that voice in that leadership role. And it starts with creating community and connections, and then looping into those more engaging roles around leadership.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And if you have an answer to this one, you could start first. Otherwise, you can serve it up to your other presenters. But one of the questions that came through from Monica is around, with kind of the idea of pop-up sites. When you're taking your mobile, either van or RV, out to more remote communities, the question is, do you have a regular schedule? And even if you do, what do you do in the interim when an emergency or a need arises from that family? What's your solution to bridge that gap?
Yes, we do have regular schedules for regularly scheduled things like a mobile play group that happens, or we do pop-up food events. And then we have the one-offs like the Pride event or these other pop-up smaller events that we do. So it's a mixture of both regular and special events that we take the mobile units out for. But the question around an emergency, I would say when I notice families having crisis, the person they call is typically, if they're already connected, that case manager or that family, we call them family partners at NECA. They're calling that person they have their relationship with, and that person is helping them, coach them through, always first and foremost, what are the network supports you already have in your community, and how can we build those? And then second, if you need my help, how can I help you get help way out there? How can I connect you with resources? And then if we have to come out there and help with things, we'll get in the car and go and figure it out. But it's a lot of partnering and a lot of relationship. I think relationship with our community partners and whatnot is at the heart of everything, because we can't be everywhere, but we know that there's help everywhere. So
thank you, Elizabeth. And curious if Rosie, I know you typed in a response here, but I think one of the innovative solutions you do in between when you're going out to communities with your RV is something to share. Will you take a quick moment to share that?
When we go out to we do have schedule visits, like when we go out there, we usually do like the first 2 weeks of the month, just because we also provide all the diapers on there. But one of the other things that we bring to the center is we have our family support through primary prevention, FSPP. And through that, we have what we call our community advisory council. So community members in the counties that we serve. And so those key people that are part of our community advisory councils sometimes are really important to trying to get the in-between. Either they live in those areas where maybe there's an emergency and they need services of ours. And so we're able to connect with those council members, and like sometimes they just need maybe to deliver a car seat or whatever it is. So we do have help through volunteers and through our community advisory council that we're able to give them help if they need it right away. And we're not going to be there for maybe a week or so. We're always, like Elizabeth was saying, we're able to justify or try to make things work, either we go out just singly, maybe just make a really fast car trip somewhere, and get that done. But I was just going to throw it out there that Community Advisory Council is very key as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. There have been a plethora of questions that have come in. I've seen Rosie, thank you so much for jumping in and answering some of these. We won't be able to get to them all. There's one last one that two that I thought we'd combine if you can give a really brief answer to, which is generally if you could speak to the number of families you serve a year or participants you serve a year and what your annual budget is.
NECA's annual budget is around 14 million, and we do our data in 6-month increments, and it's usually around 14,000 families.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
We are very small. Like I said, we're in year 3, almost year 4. So our annual budget is about 700 to 800,000 a year. And we see about anywhere from like 89 to 150 families a month. It just kind of varies depending on the month.
Thank you so much, Rosie. And how about Minnesota?
Let's see here. We're very new as well. Just 1 year in. Our annual budget, I would say it's probably about maybe 250,000 if I had to guess, on what it's cost us. And a lot of it is in kind though. And we just had these stats. We just served 2,209 individuals for our first year. So we were pretty excited about that number.
Those are great numbers. Thank you so much for a quick impromptu sharing with that. And Jenny, just want to bring it back to you for one final closing thought. If you were to say, how can people, what would be one way that they can work with you to gain more knowledge in the work you're doing in this space? What is an opportunity you'd like to share?
Sure, we would love to have folks join us to be trained in how to deliver our Family Village program, which is our Tier 3 Family Leadership Development Program. So anybody could just reach out to me and we'd be glad to get them connected. The other thing I'll say is thinking about the different numbers that we serve in different places in rural. We know that our numbers maybe don't always look like the numbers in large cities, but you are changing the trajectory for lives in your communities with each of those numbers you serve.
Thank you so very much for sharing that. I want to thank all of the guests. We have just a few additional resources that we'd like to share with you in our closing evaluation. Today's information was really rich, and we invite you to connect with them directly with the contact information that they put up. We'll be sharing the PowerPoint on our Webinar Wednesday page, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So just want to conclude out with a final few pieces of ways that you can connect with us. So upcoming Webinar Wednesdays, if you'd like to tune into these fruitful resources more in July, we have our overview of the standards of quality for family strengthening and support, as well as our From Under the Radar to All the Rage FRCs and FRC networks happening in July. And at the end of July, we have family resource centers working with African American families. So those are the 3 coming up that we invite you to register for. These are our 2 standard certification trainings that are coming up. They're 2-day trainings. Here are the registration dates. We have one happening at toward the end of July and one happening toward the end of August. We also have our second signature training program, which is developing and sustaining effective parent advisory committees training. And again, these are being offered in July and August. And this is a very highly rated virtual training. Both of these are for program staff to maximize the great potential of parent advisory committees. And we know that that's one of the staples of Family Resource Centers, is helping to engage parent leaders. And this is actually co-trained not only by an NFN staff, but also an experienced national parent leader. We also have in September our national forum coming up. This is an opportunity. It's our State of the Union, if you will, to both understand what's happening within family resource centers and family resource center networks across the country, as well as to have some virtual tours of FRCs that are happening that day. You could register at the website link below. And also happening this fall, oops, not me yet, is our Together for Families International Virtual Conference. This is a 3-day conference that is put on in conjunction with the National Family Support Network, the Center for the Study of Social Policy, Families Canada, as well as the Family Resource Center National Forum in Ireland. It's a wonderful event with a wide array of speakers, lots of expertise, and we invite you and your staff to come and join us. We do have an early bird discount that happens and it ends at the end of July, so make sure to tap into that if you're interested in participating. And if you'd like to contact me, I'm Brenda McChesney, the co-founder and associate director of the National Network. You can find my information on the website as well as on this slide. And next, we will close this out and you will be prompted to fill out our evaluation survey. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you're walking away today with some tips and tools and techniques for engaging families in rural communities. And thank you so much to our wide array of presenters. We appreciate your expertise and your knowledge, and we'll see you next time for our webinar Wednesday.